If your life was a movie, what would it be?
Well, I think I'd be a policeman in England, being really good at my job, and then one day the higher-ups are like, hey, you're doing this too well. Get out of here. You're making us look bad. And get sent to the country. And I'm like, oh, shit, it's pretty boring out here. Not too much to do, but things slowly unravel, and it's a lot worse than I realised.
A whip camera moved to the summary of the movie we will be discussing today. Hot Fuzz, directed by Edgar Wright, published in 2007. I'm Darren.
And I'm Tim.
This is MovieBeings Podcast.
Beings?
So, this movie scored 7.8 out of 10 on IMDb, starring Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. I would say one of the underrated dynamic duo of Hollywood. But before we get into the movie, before we get into the characters, I want to talk a little bit about the director, Edgar Wright. So I'm not sure you have the chance to see this, but he started his career in 1993. And one of his most recent movies is Baby Driver.
Oh, yeah.
He directed that as well. So you can
Great
see
movie.
a lot of his styles.
Yeah.
But something that I would like to bring up, and I think this one might be interesting to you. He directed a few music videos.
Oh, yeah.
And in one of the music videos by Mint Royal, the song is called Blue Song. And it starred Nick Frost. And the song was 3 minutes. And it's about a bank heist. And then in 2014, he turned that into Baby Driver.
Well, there you go. Too easy.
So let's talk about Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. What do you think about this duo?
I think they work pretty well. Is it the four main movies they've done together?
So Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz. I did Paul.
I enjoyed Paul. It's a bit silly, but it's funny as well.
And the most recent one is At War's End. On IMDb, they call it the Three Flavors Cornetto Trilogy. I don't know why they call it that.
Yeah, I know they reference cornettos in Hot Fuzz. I can't remember if they're
probably a sponsor.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know if they reference. I can't remember if they reference it in other movies, but
So I know that they work really well together.
they do have a good chemistry. Yeah.
But I think that's very important these days, right? And I think it's more of your dream. You work in Hollywood with your best buddies. Sounds like Adam Sandler kind of gig, but
Yeah, at least they're funny.
Oh, shot fire. All right, so let's start right at the beginning of this movie. I think right off the bat, I really enjoy the energy of this movie. It's a very quick pace. Like from the first moment that our character walks in, Nicholas Angel, he's not walking slowly.
No.
He's always like on a move, on a mission. And I think this is one of the movie that does exposition and introduction / narration really well. They went through his whole career and personality within 1 minute.
Yeah, and it does it really well, really quickly, because he gets across what he wanted to do straight away. He's like, I always wanted to be a police officer. He gets into it. He's like, I was like top of my grades. I worked really hard. I did all the extra activities I needed. And I was like on the top ranks of everything. So it's like, I already know he's serious. He loves his job. And he probably goes a bit too hard doing his job.
During that montage, did you notice anything a bit out of the ordinary? No, I mean, I'm just asking because I think at the beginning they're trying to make him turn out to be like a super cop, because he's very good at physical activities. He's very smart. He plays chess. He does fencing. When I think we got to that, I was like, okay, it's a bit much.
I think that was meant to be the joke as well. That it's like, oh, look at all these other things he does as well, kind of thing. But I didn't see him as a super cop. I just thought he seemed like a good cop that probably just worked or only cared about his job. Yeah, and I think. That came across very well.
One of the details that I really enjoy is at the beginning, it's he joined the police academy, he passed all the tests, he scored perfectly, he finished the test, and then he got to the montage where he did judo. I was like, okay, sure, you need that. And then he started playing chess, like speed chess. Okay, and then he gave the presentation and stuff as well. But within this short montage, the main character, the personality, his motivation, and you also get a sense of the energy for the rest of the movie as well. I think this is one of the super good example of how to start a movie. And then we got to the office, and when this is one of my favorite dialogues as well.
It's great.
How's the hand? Like he got stabbed by Saint Nicholas, by Santa Claus.
Yeah. Oh my god. Still a bit stiff.
Yes.
Yeah. Still a bit stiff.
I didn't notice this the first time. So when he came in, how's the hand? It's a bit stiff. We're moving you. And he was like, no, I don't want to. I want to be here. And then I want to go higher up. And the officer was like, he's going to say the exact same thing. And then, how's the hand?
Yeah, how's the hand?
That's great. But I expected Martin Freeman to play a much bigger role in this movie.
It's always funny seeing him, but they must all know each other. Because it's like he's in it for what, like maybe it's 2 scenes, right? The start and the end.
At the end.
And it's just like, it's just cool because even the second guy, I can't remember his name. He's like a prominent like actor as well.
Yeah.
He's been in a lot of stuff. And it's like, and I still love that scene, like you say. And he's like, you want to go higher up again? You sure? I'm going to have to ring him. And he's like, I can't remember his name. He's like, oh, Paul, come over here. He's
Kenneth.
Like, Kenneth. He's just like, just over there. And I'm like, oh, God.
This guy is so funny. Like, the truth is, you are doing your job.
How's the hand? And then the other guy's like, oh, it's still a bit stiff.
The dialogues in this movie is very well written, very well acted. And again, it's combined with this, like, very distinctive style of Edgar Wright. So he likes to do a lot of whip pan. So when you pan the camera from left to right really quickly, or you do whip zoom, when you zoom in and out really quickly. So it gives the movie a very distinctive energy. Combine that with funny dialogues, then you got a pretty entertaining movie.
So when they're talking about why, he's like, I don't want to move to the country. I'm like, yeah, you did. Because his girlfriend, like, he's like, where'd you find out? And he's like, read the I would like to move to the country sometime.
Janine.
I was
like, I didn't tell you that.
Yeah, and it's like, they obviously got it from Janine, or she just like, they like eavesdropped on him or something.
Yes. I think like this movie did the humor so well, like the deadpan humor so well. Like,
it's that British humour.
British humour. I think I enjoy this kind of humour quite a lot.
Yeah, I really enjoy British humour as well.
So I think after this conversation, he went to see his girlfriend.
Yeah. He's like, I wanted to tell you like face to face.
That was a funny scene as well.
He's like, where are you? I'm here.
He's like, Nicholas, I'm working. I know.
I know. He's just like, oh, because they're all dressed the same.
What's the situation? Oh, you want to talk about this here? No, I mean this situation.
I mean the situation.
So I think, but like from the current viewing, I noticed like all these dialogues is supposed to reveal something about his personality. So literally from 4 lines of dialogue, you know that he mixed his personal life and work life together.
Yeah, already. And even when he's talking to someone that's breaking up with him, he's just like, so he's more interested in the job than the actual what's happening at the moment.
He's really good at it. I understand. Like he pays attention to the details. And this reminds me, like during the first introduction montage, they were like, he quickly established his reputation among the public when he was showing, like was helping older people. And then when he jumps back into the situation with his girlfriend, he was like, yeah, tell me, like 2 suspects, no signs of forced entry. And it's like, okay, I want to talk to you face to face. He came inside and he started talking to the first person.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I'm not Janine.
I'm not Janine. And she's like she's like the next door over. I'm like, yeah.
It was so funny. I really don't know how Simon Pegg could keep a straight face during those takes, because it was a one-shot take.
Yeah.
He did that and then he moved on to the next person. And then, oh, this is Bob. Hi.
Because when they're like, oh, it's like, oh, and they like, it's like, oh, whatever, you're moving to the country, whatever. And then she's like, oh, did you find someone else? He's like, was it Bob? He's like, no.
Did you notice that Bob turned around?
When Bob turned around. Because then when she said the guy who it really was just the guy next to him.
Dave.
Oh, hey. And it's like, oh. It's funny because they're all the same, right? That's like the joke. They're like, oh.
And then Bob turned around and kind of his head
I would never be with someone like Bob.
I was like, oh.
And it's like, oh, it's Dave. And it's like, he looks exactly the same anyway. So it's like, oh, okay.
But I think during this scene here, Janine set up the premise quite well. Hey, Nicholas, you don't know how to turn it off. You don't know how to switch off. And I think that's the premise. That this is like the summary of this personality. Because I think a personality is very complex, but for a movie and especially for the audience to follow, you need to have one simple line of premise, a 3-second, an elevator pitch, of the character.
Because that was great. As soon as she finishes that, he's like, "Oh, did you know that was broken from the inside?"
Yeah.
He's like still thinking
so
about
good.
the job.
That's so good.
Even though his girlfriend's like trying, or ex-girlfriend's trying to like give him some insight, and he's like, "No."
And when after this one, it comes to one of my favorite aspects of this movie, the jump cuts, the quick montage, and this is one of the signatures of Edgar Wright. So he does jump cuts of mundane tasks. So Nicholas was waiting for a taxi, then he got on the train. He was waiting for the train. Like the montage is just super well made, and it still gives this energy as well. I just want to bring that up
because there's quite a lot. There's even like better ones later in the film where it like crosses, like it jumps straight from like an aggressive scene into like a mundane scene, which it does really well a lot.
Yeah, and I think this style appear again in Paul. It appears again in Shaun of the Dead, and also at War's End. So it becomes a signature.
Yeah. Most directors, if you watch a few of their movies, you can kind of pick up on their style.
So he got to Sandford, the village, and this is another detail that they did really well as well. When he was in a taxi, and they drove past Model Village sign, and I was like, "Oh, okay, it's a nice village, I guess." But I didn't really pay attention to that at the beginning, and now after multiple viewings, I noticed that they try to weave that into the story at the beginning.
They do that a lot in this movie, where you notice like little things that are said or things that are done that are like, "Oh, this is hinting at something else."
I really like the first moments where he stepped into the hotel, the inn, like the old guy sleeping. You can tell straight away it's the opposite.
Yeah,
what he's known for.
And talking to the old lady at the front on the desk
that's
doing
so
the crossword.
Weird.
Because did she just say fascist straight off the get-go? I can't even remember if they talked for a little bit. I think they talked for a little bit, and she's like, "Fascist." He's like, "What?"
I think she said fascist to his face.
Yeah.
I think she was like, "Are you?" She's like, I'm here to check in. And she's like, "But you're always here."
Yeah.
I was like, "What do you mean?" Oh, sorry. I thought you were my husband. And then fascist. It was out of nowhere. And then he gave her something back as well. Like hag or something.
Hag? What? It's like 7 down. Yeah. Old irritated woman.
oh, bless you.
Yeah, and it's just like, oh God.
But that scene went by like really quickly.
Because he went upstairs, he drops his stuff off, and then he decides to go to the pub.
As you would. Like, where else would you meet people?
Yeah, what else do you do in a country town?
And we got introduced to the first two characters of the town, Dave and Mary,
the owners
of the pub. I think he was reading a newspaper at first.
No,
sorry. He came in, and then Danny was drinking a beer.
He comes in, asks, he has a beer. There's like a chat, and then he asks for I think he asked for like 3 in the tone of their conversation or something. It's like really quick. I'm like, oh damn.
Yeah. Well, so what can I get you? Cranberry juice.
Yeah.
Speaking of cranberry juice.
So that was great because it was just like, so you already know he doesn't drink because he takes it too seriously. But at this point, he's looking around the bar, and there's a lot of young people in here, obviously teenagers. And he goes up to a few of them. He's like, "How old are you?"
I love the interaction because even though he's not on duty yet.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
And then he saw the sign in the pub.
He literally sees it. Like, it's like, oh, no underage drinking. And they're literally underage drinking. It's like so obvious.
And I think like I really like these small moments before he decided to do it. He was like, oh, should I do this? Okay, yeah, I'm doing this. And then he's like, when's your birthday? Yeah. February 5th. Which year? Every year.
Yeah, every year. I thought that was great. Every year.
Get out. And I think before that, before all the customers got kicked out, I think the owner of the bar came to him and was like, "Oh, we understand that they are a bit underage, but it's better."
Because I think he kicks a couple of them out. Then he's like, "Oh, we know they're probably underage, but it's for the greater good." That's the first time we hear that.
Yeah, hear the term. Yeah.
And he's like, Nah, get him out.
And then the whole pub was empty.
I love that because he kicked them all out. Then he goes back to sit down and drinking his drink, and the guy's like, you want anything else? He's like, nah, I'm all right. After he just kicked out all the customers.
The sarcasm is so funny. And I think that when he finished, he came out and then he threw a coin into the wishing well.
Yeah.
And then he saw like the
graffiti, I think there was. Oh, he saw the sign.
The signs. The
plaque with their names on it. There was like a little bit of graffiti next to it as well.
Yeah. And then we got introduced to the other character, Danny.
Yeah.
So Danny was like, was about to get into the car. And
You're not driving that, are you?
Oh, no. And then he walks off. And then he jumped into the car again. But yeah, that was a very good action scene as well. Nicholas rode out of the way. And he took him to the police station. He was like, I'm going to take you to the station.
Yeah, and he walks there, and then he runs into some of the other teenagers that were drinking. Like, I think one was peeing, one had like a cone on his head, and he just brings them in. I think he brought another 3 of them, which is great. Yeah. He's just like,
One of the underrated character that I really like is the guy who's in the booth.
Yeah.
He comes in and he's like, okay, I want to process these for, okay, who are you?
Who are you?
I'm Nicholas Angel. When are you on duty? Tomorrow?
Tomorrow, yeah, tomorrow. All right. He's like, you sure you want to do this? There's a lot of paperwork. He's like, I'll do it.
Yeah.
He doesn't care.
But then he didn't process Danny that night. He processed the 3 teenagers.
He did the kid because he's like, put him in cell 4 or whatever to let him sleep it off. And he's like, all right.
Yeah.
And then when he gets there the next morning and looks in there and he's like, he's gone. He's like, what the hell's going on? And then Danny's like, comes next to him. He's like, who's gone?
I love that. Nick Frost and Simon Pegg has such good chemistry. I'm not sure if you heard his story, but they used to be college friends.
Yeah.
And they used to sleep in the same apartment, sleep on the same couch, apparently. I mean,
hopefully it was a big couch.
They didn't have much money back then, I think. But I think... yeah, and it's just a very funny way to introduce our supporting character.
You can tell they've got like they're already friends.
And I think that's the day that Nicholas was put on duty, and then he got introduced to everyone in the station.
He gives him I can't remember who's the boss, because he goes into him to speak to him.
Yeah, and
he's like, I'll give you a tour. But he was talking about he does a tour, and then he talks about Danny. He's like, they're going through all the places, and there's like, here's the evidence room, 9999. Just like opens it up, and I'm like,
and it's empty.
Yeah, and it's empty. There's nothing in it. So I was like, okay, so they don't really arrest anybody at all.
The riot room was like full of cobwebs as well.
Cobwebs. And then they go upstairs to the guy with all the cameras, and he's like, I was admiring your handiwork last night, but about those hooded hoodlums. And I'm like, bro, they're just sitting there. You literally had teenagers drinking in a bar.
Yeah, it's all about perspective. It's all about priorities. But another detail that I like about this movie overall is the way that they introduce the characters. It doesn't feel forced. So, for example, for Danny was... I would say that... I don't want to say that he's a child of nepotism.
Yeah, he is.
But, we got introduced to him. It's like, are you a police officer? Yeah. Why? How? And it's like, because my dad is one.
Yeah.
And then we got introduced to Chief Butterman.
These names.
Butterman. Then we got a tour. What do you think about the side characters? What do you think about the other
Well, they're all
officers?
introduced with like a joke or almost like, and it's just like, because there's the Andys.
The Andys.
He's like, how'd you get that? He's like, are they both Andrews? He's like, yeah. You're quick.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh God.
Those guys are quite pricks.
Yeah. I think that's meant to be the point. They're meant to be rude as hell.
Yeah, twats. And when we got introduced to the other police officers, like Tony is a guy with a lot of text around him, an old guy.
The old guy who can't understand as well.
And Doris.
Doris
is a bit of a funny character as well. They really did something like weird with her.
Because I think they like she's quite sexual. She sexualizes herself.
Yes.
Like I don't think any of the other. I think he makes a joke later because they're like comfortable, but like through the movie she makes a lot of like sexual jokes about herself.
Yes.
That's kind of like her character,
which is very weird.
But
like I still remember the first time.
I feel like it's just like, it's a woman, so she's got to be sexualized, right?
But I still remember the first line that she says, like, and this is Doris. She's our only policeman.
Policeman.
And then and Nicholas was like, no, police officer.
Yeah.
Because policeman is very sexist.
Yeah.
And then she was like, oh, don't worry, I've been around the office.
Yeah, and it just like really insinuates that she slept with all of them, and I'm like, oh god, I forgot about that till I rewatched it, and I was like, oh god.
And throughout the movie, she makes a lot of those jokes as well.
Yeah.
And then he was like, yeah, it's time for lunch. And
I love that. I love that. He like just introduced everybody, and they were already eating cake because they're like, oh, why are we eating cake? And what did he do?
This was the punishment for Danny. He forgot his hat somewhere the other day, and then he got punished.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, but now something more serious for drink driving. He's gonna support us with all the ice cream in the next month.
He's like, come on, Dad. I was like, bro, what? He almost killed the new guy. Like literally nearly ran him over.
But I think right at this moment, you can tell that Nicholas is struggling to adapt to this new setting because like during the introduction montage, you see that he's dealing with riots, all the serious stuff all the time. So it's always like go, go, go.
Yeah.
But here, like the punishment is like getting ice cream.
Yeah. It's just like,
what is going on?
And this is the policemen that are making the mistakes as well. So it's like, do something that probably should be prosecuted, and it's like, just let him buy ice cream, he'll be right. So you already know, like, this is not.
Yeah, and I think during this time they also mentioned his predecessor, like another policeman who came from the city.
It's like said something about a big bushy beard or something, right?
Yeah. And then he went insane. Insane. Where did they go for lunch? It was like,
where else? The pub.
Only one pub. What did they do there?
What else did they do? They drank.
But Nicholas didn't drink.
No, he didn't drink.
Then they went for lunch. And then what happened at the pub during that time?
So they were just drinking, but I think they might... I can't remember who they wanted to... I don't know if he... Did he run into Skinner then? No, he ran in and he was going for a run in the morning and he ran into Skinner.
Yes.
Because I remember that's where he goes next, right?
I think
that's on patrol, when he's on patrol with Danny, right?
Yeah. I think it's the next morning. So when they went for lunch, they went to the pub, and I think he got introduced to
some of the other people in the town, right? Is that when he meets the actress?
Yes, correct.
The actor and the actress.
Yeah. Mr. Blower.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, feels like a bad game of Cluedo.
Mr.
Butterman, Angel.
And I think they were doing like speed testing or something, and then I love Danny because like Danny is so impressionable with everything that Nicholas does. So when they did a high speed chase, and then they stopped the car, and Danny was like, that was amazing. And he during this time, like he was using his small notebook to note down things as well. And it's like, I'm just writing down everything you say.
Yeah.
Stop writing. Yeah. Stop writing. Yes.
It's like, this is your most powerful weapon.
Yes. But I think that interchange, like that interaction has really good dialogue. I think the whole movie has really good dialogues. And I think like on the second or third viewing, you need to really pay attention to the details inside each dialogue.
Because I think that's what makes the difference between like any other comedy. Like all the dialogue does kind of, it means something usually, like it is hinting at something later in the film or hinting at something, related to a character, or it has kind of like a flaw or something. It has a bit more meaning than like the usual where it's just like, oh, insert joke, off we go. Where this is all kind of like leading to something, and it all has like a purpose for the story, which is what I really appreciate about most of their movies. But Hot Fuzz is like the one that's like, is it the best one? I haven't seen Shaun of the Dead in a while, but that's good. But I feel like Hot Fuzz has got to be the better one, right?
I think so. I think like out of all the movies, Hot Fuzz got like the highest rating. But I think Shaun of the Dead is always like the first introduction to this kind of team. Yeah,
it's like the first go at it, right?
Yeah. So I want to talk about Skinner. I think out of all the dialogues, I think Skinner's dialogue is more of a like a clue giver to the viewers, right? So Nicholas met him for the first time when they were jogging.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Hey, I'm a slasher."
I'm a slasher.
I was like, "What?"
Yeah, like literally, like what? Slasher prices.
Yeah. But like throughout the movie, like all his dialogues, all his actions, is supposed to be very suspicious. He's always at the right place at the right time. You know what I mean? So, yeah, it's and like I think they picked the casting really well. When you look at this character, you know that he's up to no good.
Yeah.
But then you have that suspicion in your head, like, okay, he's up to no good, but what's the evidence? And that's why it keeps you engaged and intrigued.
Because you like feel like, oh, is he up to something? Is he the one, like all the weird stuff that's going to happen? And is it on him? But then obviously we get led somewhere else. But it does do a good job of that, of like, because there's the actors, and I think it was a bit later when they get the invitation to go.
Yes. I think later that night, because like he gave the actor, so Mr. Blower is a solicitor. He's a lawyer, and the lady is Eve. So she works for the council, and they gave him a speeding ticket. And later that night, they got the 2 tickets from the guy at the front. But this is when we got introduced to the other guy. Yeah, with the bushy hair. Nobody tells me nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's like, no, we're not supposed to receive gifts.
Yeah, he's like, we can't take bribes. And then he like walks over, and Mr. Butman's like, hey, I need you to go. I need you to go to
the Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah, and I've got 2 tickets, so you can take Danny with you.
And then he was like,
yeah. And I'm like, oh god, couldn't get out.
And Nicholas was like, oh, here we go. But I think there's something else happening before this. I think the night before he got introduced to the Watchman party. He got introduced to different people. Yeah. Right. So he got introduced to the horticultural specialist. He got introduced to the doctor, etc. So he kind of got introduced to different people, and then he met Skinner the next day. Let's talk about that play in particular.
Oh, God.
The Romeo and Juliet play. What do you think? What's your opinion?
I think Simon Pegg was right when he said it's all so awful.
3 hours play. But this is something that you might appreciate as well. Edgar Wright also directs another music video in the year 2000. It's called, the band is the Blue Tones. And the music, and the song is Keep the Home's Fires Burning. In this music video, you see that the imagery, the camera angles, the sets are so familiar.
Right.
Very similar to Hot Fuzz. There was a theater, there was policeman, there was a chef, there was cafe, etc.
Part 1.
I mean, how else are you going to hone your skills? Make music videos.
Yeah. Got to get work when you get it.
3 hour play, and I think they went to. But before they went to this play, I think Nicholas were trying to get used to the situation in the town, and we got introduced to our most dangerous criminal of the town, the Swan.
The Swan, that's right.
Stephen Merchant had a really small role.
Yeah, it was great. Like, can you describe the Swan to me?
Slender neck.
Like slender neck.
It's a swan.
Bill.
Oh, his name as well.
No. He's like, it's got a bill. It's yellow. Looks like a swan. Oh my god! And then do they chase him? No, because I think when they go to the supermarket later.
Yes.
And then he notices the guy.
Yes. The guy in purple. Yeah.
And then they chase him because he's talking to Skinner again.
Yes.
And he's like, oh, you should worry about that guy. And he's like, oh.
Yeah. And I think there's another detail that I noticed as well in this movie. I think it's literally trying to misdirect you quite a few times, because like when one character says, oh, you need to do this, and then you think that they were talking about that, and then no, I'm talking about this thing. So like literally it's trying to misdirect you.
Yeah.
That chase scene is quite funny as well. Chasing the guy in the purple jumpsuit. Yeah. Danny was trying so hard to keep up. And he ran into a group of mothers, and he said, "You mothers." Did you notice the similar scene where Simon Pegg jumps through the fence?
Yeah. Because they fall over it in Dawn of the
Shaun of
the Dead. They all like fall over them when they're trying to run away. But in this one, he makes it easily.
Yeah. There was a trampoline that they set up for the last fence where he did like
the big flip.
the big flip, the somersault. And then he was just like ran through the fence the first one.
Yeah, it's just like, oh God.
I think this movie is like super funny. And I really enjoy like the humor in this. Tell me about like what is your favorite scene of the movie, because there are a lot of scenes here.
I was gonna say it's a little bit later on. It's when the rich guy that owns the big hotel, or the big house, sorry, and he was drunk, so they take him home. Danny and Angel, they take him home and they put him in, and he's like, he literally gets murdered, and he gets like smacked over the head. But as this is another cut, so when he gets smacked in the head, it cuts to Angel like falling onto the chair.
Yeah.
And I thought that cut was amazing. I'm like, oh, we've gone to a murder to the guy sitting on a chair about to watch a movie.
And I think like that set piece in particular was really important in terms of character development. I think throughout the whole movie, up until that point, our main character has been very frustrated. You know, I think he has been after that play, like those two characters got murdered, and
they blamed it on speeding because their heads got like lobbed off or something. And it's this is a bit sus.
Yeah, but that was a very gruesome detail to add in the movie.
Well, because I remember when this came out, the whole thing was like how gruesome it was. I remember like oh, look how gruesome there is. There's some gruesome things, but I'm like, oh. When I watch it, I'm like, oh, I do remember. There's like a few things in this. You're like, oh my God.
Yes. So I think that was the first.
That's like the first
incident.
Yeah.
Accident, and it's like, no, call it collision.
Because Angel's there and he's like, oh, we need to do this, we need to do that, and we need to do this, and they're like, no, it's just an accident. Like, don't worry about it. And he's like, what?
Yeah. And I think Danny I love Danny, like, because he's part of this town. Like, he's from this town. So when people come up to him, it's like, the people come up to a police officer, Danny, what happened? Oh, traffic accident. And I said, no, it's a traffic collision. Because if you call it an accident, that means no one is to blame.
Yeah.
Like, ooh, cool. I'm going to use that. Traffic collision. And then he said it in the next line. I think this is one of the things that the movies does well as well. During these murders, Skinner is always there, and it keeps you wonder, like, why is he always here? And I think this is one of the misdirection tricks that they do.
Because after the play, they're like chatting. He talks to the actress and the actor, and they're like chatting a bit. Yeah. And then Skinner comes over and he has like a talk with the actress because she's a part of
the council,
as well. Yeah. And he's like, oh, I'd love to bash your head in because I'm sure there's some thoughts in there. And I'm like, okay, bro, chill out.
So slasher, bashing people head in, and then later in that scene, he did like the cutthroat one as well. It's like, come on, bro.
And we're introduced to I've forgotten the guy. The news guy in the town, the
Tim Messenger.
Yeah, the publisher, and he's like writing all the things.
Yeah.
Because isn't it the next day they talk about Angle?
Angle, yeah. He misspelled his name. Tim Messenger. It's supposed to be a good messenger.
See, it is. It's just like a bad game of Cluedo. Here's the messenger.
Choose the best name. Choose the worst names. But I think all these characters, even though they appear very short, but you can distinguish them like very easily.
Yeah.
Probably from the names.
Well, I think they're meant to all have their kind of trait that it's just like, as we find out later in the movie, but they've all got like their personality trait. It's just like, you know, the actor's he's got this mistress. She's not a great actor. She's got a stupid laugh. We've got the journalist that isn't really that good at spelling. You know, we've got all these characters that are like something a bit off. We've got the rich guy that owns this big ugly house that they don't like. It's like little things that are just like, oh,
interesting.
Why are they pointing like? It's not like super important, but these are like things they're emphasizing and like pointing out.
And I mean, like when you have a movie with a big group of people, it's really hard for the audience to keep track. So you might as well focus on the one thing.
But I think it does a good job of like, they introduce the person they're going to kill, And then in that scene, they might have the next person come in who's going to be
The next
soon
victim.
to be killed. Yeah, and it like introduces that. And then he kind of comes in. And when he's then is like, oh, maybe introduce the next character during that scene as well.
Interesting.
So when you lose a character, you're gaining a character.
Interesting.
And because it's all really sharp, witty humour, you like laugh with them, laugh at them, and then you move on.
Yeah.
And then you watch the gruesome death and you're like, oh my God. I thought that was a terrible way to die. Then 10 minutes in the movie, you're like, I was wrong.
Yeah.
There's a worse way.
There's a worse way as
There's
well.
a worse one.
I think like watching the interaction between Danny and Angel throughout like different incidents, like after the first murder and the second one after, I think that was when they got really close. I think this is when they went to the pub and then Angel started drinking that night.
Yeah. So I can't remember what happened that day exactly. That's what I was... This would have been the same day as the actor and the actress died, right?
Yes.
And you decide to go to the pub with him. And then he's like, oh, you got to have one drink, right?
Yes.
And he's like, all right.
Yeah.
And then they have a lot to drink. And this is when they see the house owner. He's there as well.
Yeah.
And he's just in the corner peeing
Yeah.
on the like the pinball machine.
Yeah.
And he's like, what did he say? Oh no, because did Skinner run into him or something?
Yeah,
he
he
spills
was,
the
he
drink.
was.
He's like, oh, you've had a bit much to drink, mate.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, I can't. It's like, he literally is like, oh, I tripped. And he's like, oh, come on, mate.
And then when they took them home, he gave them some tip, and then it was like 20 quid.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
my
here's
God.
your change. I love that small interactions, but it makes it so funny. It makes it so human. But then again, like during the second incident, they were there again, and Skinner was there as well.
Yeah. Like it shows you these people are around, but it's like, oh, is he the guy that's doing it? Like you're in that there's something going on. You know, it's not as simple as it seems.
Yeah. And then on the second night of the rich guy's home being blown off, I think it was also the night that Danny kind of introduced Angel to the movies.
Because I think this was earlier in the movie, he's asking him, he's like, oh,
have you seen this?
have you shot a gun? Have you shot a gun in the air? Have you like dived through the air with two guns? And he's like, no, yes. He's like, oh, what, have you been stabbed? He's like, yes. He's like, oh, how was it like? It was the most painful experience of my life. He's like, oh, that's cool.
And and then he was like, have you seen Bad Boys?
Yeah.
Have you seen Point Break?
Yeah, have you seen Point Break? So we just... The guy with the big house was peeing on the pinball machine.
Yeah. And I think that's where he ran into the chief Butterman as well. He's like, oh, it looks like somebody needs to go home.
Oh, that's who he runs into. Yeah. Oh, because it's Skinner, and then he sees, oh, someone needs to go home. He's like, oh, I haven't had that much. And he's like, oh, no.
The other guy.
The guy peeing everywhere.
And I think this is also the night that Danny introduced him to the movies.
Yeah.
When he opened up like his movie room.
Yeah. And he's
And
like,
then-
oh, my God.
I think this is one of the lines that after this movie, I kind of say it quite a lot. By the power of Grayskull.
Oh, God.
So this line is from He-Man, and I used to watch He-Man quite a lot as well.
Well, there you go.
So I heard that, I was like, what? Did I just really say that in the movie?
A regressed memory. It's all back.
And then Danny was like, okay, Bad Boys 2 or Point Break? Which one do you think I like better?
No, what did he say? Oh, he's like, what do you mean? Which one? He's like, which one should we do first?
Oh, you're pulling my leg.
Yeah, because he's like, we're going to watch both of them.
Yeah. And
Which also leads it to a point, because they watch, I think it was Point Break, when Keanu Reeves points the gun and he like shoots into the sky.
Yeah.
That's what he's referring to.
Yes.
He's like, hey, have you done that before?
And I think that when they watched the second movie, Bad Boys 2, that was when the phone rang, and then Angel was like, and on the scene was like, oh shit, it's about to get real.
Yeah.
Brilliant. The transitions of scenes, of characters, of dialogues is like one of the best things about this movie, hands down. And like they are like Easter eggs. You know, when you watch it again, you notice something more. So they went to the second crime scene. And it was just another accident.
Yeah, because the journalist was there again, right?
Yeah.
And I can't remember, was Skinner? I can't remember. Someone was poking fun at him again, right? Or was that maybe? I think that was a bit later at the festival when Skinner was poking fun of him.
I think during this crime scene, like Tim Messenger was like, okay, can I ask you this question? And he was like, no, I will issue a statement later. What is your perfect Sunday?
Yeah. It was like the weirdest.
And then
Like a house just exploded and a guy died in it. But
and as Tony was like, my perfect Sunday.
yeah, he was like really going into it like, oh my God. It really shows you how brainwashed they kind of all are.
Yes.
Like a guy's house just exploded and they're just like,
Yeah.
oh.
And I think like the audience is quite similar to Nicholas during this stage as well. Like, guys, things are happening.
Yeah,
like,
they're like, something's clearly going on. This is weird.
What was the third incident?
So that's Tim Messenger at the festival.
Yes.
And they have like it happens to have like, was it bingo or something? Angel was doing the bingo or pulling out the numbers. And then... So they're all there. I think all the police force are there. They're all doing I think they're just there for fun. They're not really there.
They're all dressed up.
Yeah, they're all dressed up.
Except for Angel, really.
Yeah.
But I think the scene before that is like, he was talking to the two detectives.
Yeah.
And it's like,
because I think he was talking about the development, right? I think that's the first time we hear about that, right? Was it development or does that come up a little later?
Not really.
Or was that not till he talks to the florist?
I think after that. Yeah, yes. But before that, like, I think he was talking to the two detectives.
Because he was asking him he wasn't asking him like a weird...
Yeah, and then one of the detectives was like, "Oh, I think you got some Sunday duty." And I said, no, I don't. And then she was like, "Actually,
actually."
And so you got a role to like security, and you have to do the announcements, and all the other police people are dressed up to go to the festival on a Sunday. I just love that Chief Butterman and Danny, they all dress up as cowboys, just like in the photo.
Yeah.
Which is good. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But
but it's just like when you know what's actually happening, it's like, oh my God.
And then during that festival, you could see that Skinner was like hitting his hand. It was like whack-a-mole.
Yeah. He's really like, okay, mate.
Stop it. We know that you're a bad person.
We
already.
get it.
But then we saw that Tim was talking to what was
it was the florist. That's when he talks. Sissy. That's when he talks to the florist.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, I don't think we know about the development yet.
Not yet.
But that's what they were talking about.
Yeah. And then that's when...
the most gruesome murder happens.
Yeah, I think so. Well, to be fair, during that murder, they use CGI, which I really appreciate.
Well, what else are they going to do?
Because if they had used...
They're going to drop
practical
a real...
effect. Yeah.
Like get a real person? How do you feel about dying on camera? Well...
But they could have used like practical effects. They could
I still think it was pretty gruesome.
It was very gruesome.
I think that's the thing I remember. Like, because I don't remember the gruesomeness. Like all the other stuff's like the head cutting off. Oh, that's pretty bad. And I'm like, oh bloody hell! They really just pushed the top of that pillar through the dude. I'm like,
yeah. But I think like we got introduced to this menacing figure in a black coat.
Yeah, that's in the first time we see the guy when we see the Nazgul.
Yeah,
because there was the guy. He was there at the house when the rich guy in his big house.
Yeah, that one.
Because you see the cloak guy there as well. I can't remember if you see it relating to the actors or not.
Yeah, we did. We did.
Yeah,
we did. So they came in with an axe as well.
That's right.
But. And I still can't believe that with that happening right in front of them, the police people, when they had a conversation inside the church, it was like,
accidents.
It's another accident. It's like, what do you mean?
It's like the third accident in 3 days.
Yeah. And then the chief was like, so you're saying that this is a crime scene? And then suddenly, okay.
Everyone was like, oh,
here we go.
We have to do our jobs.
And then they put Nicholas and Danny on like rain duty, just like guarding duty. And I think during this time is another reminder of Nicholas' character as well. So then he was telling him the same thing.
Yeah.
It was like, you don't know how to switch off. And then he started running away. I just love Nick Frost so much.
He's so good. He does a great job. Because, that's him again. He's still willing to do his job, even though he knows everyone doesn't believe it's right or they're doing the job like they should be doing. But he's just like, this is what we need to do.
Yeah. And after that... Oh, so I think after that, what did he do to?
Because he's starting to figure it all out, right?
Oh, right. So just before that, just before he had the argument with Danny, he had the conversation with the two detectives, and he was like, did you find anything? No, that's your job. You know, investigate. Investigate.
Did you find anything? No.
Like everybody knows everybody in this town.
Yeah.
And then they said something like, okay, if you want to go through all the newspapers of this town, go ahead. And I think later that night he did that.
That's when he does it. Because then he goes to Danny the next day and he's like, I think I'm onto something. So they like work together to go through the stuff. And then Danny's like, maybe it's all just an accident. And I'm like, oh my God.
But I think during that day, it was Danny's birthday.
Yeah, because they find out after that. They do all this.
Yeah.
And then it must be
dad
Butterman. Yeah, comes in with the cake. He's like, whose birthday? And he's like, oh, it's my birthday. He's like, oh, you should have told me.
Yeah.
And then that's when he goes to the florist. He's like, what are you doing? I'm running a personal errand.
But did you notice that Doris was wearing fake boobs?
Well, that's what I mean. Like more like sexual humor at her own expense.
It was like, there's a fire in the station, and then Doris was carrying the cake out with wearing fake boobs. That's so weird.
Yeah, I know.
And so he went to the florist, and did you notice the detail that this is the one time that he didn't bring his notebook? He put a notebook on the dashboard.
Oh, I didn't notice.
You know what I mean? So usually when like everyone he meets, he'd like to write things down.
Which, it's kind of interesting, but I don't think it would have. They didn't believe him anyway. Even if he wrote like later on what happens, even if he wrote it down, I don't know if they would have made a huge difference.
Yeah.
Or unless he threw it at the guy that ran away.
Yeah. No,
but it is an interesting detail.
But I really like that.
He takes it everywhere, right?
Yeah, correct. And it shows that he's changing.
Because it is a personal. He does say it's personal, and it's because he does use the police car to go get there quicker, right?
Correct.
So he is kind of abusing that power to get there quicker rather than, doing it the right way. So it is kind of like he's willing to, he is becoming friends with, they are friends, right? So that's the thing. He's like letting himself not worry about work for his friend.
Yeah. And I think during that scene, it's showing like his character is changing a little bit because before that, he always keeps a notebook, and now he's using a police car to get there, and then he puts a notebook on the dashboard, which to me is a very small detail, but I think that
shows he's not working essentially. Yeah.
Or at least he got something more important.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and like, did you notice his reaction when the florist told him all the information?
Yeah.
He's like, what?
This
Slow down.
Yeah, this is like a lot.
So he ran out to grab a notebook.
Yeah.
And
I still love that scene when he goes out to get it. The guy's just like, bam, like straight into her neck. Oh my God.
That's horrible. It's horrible. And she was like, I could never find my scissors. I don't think those are called scissors, lady. I think they're called shears. They're massive.
Sheared her life in half.
Oh my God.
But another brutal killing. Like, I think it's meant to be over the top because it's like even more unbelievable that these people all think it's like an accident.
Yeah. And then we had a chase scene, and I think this is another good and well thought out chase scene as well. What do you think about this scene? What was your first impression of this scene?
I thought it was really well done because obviously it leads into stuff a little bit later, like the next scenes, because it's just like it shows all of his talent and stuff, but just not quite good enough to get him as well. But because it's important, because obviously when he goes to tell, that's what I hated when he went to tell everyone. He's like, what are you she just fell on her shears. And I'm like, what are you doing? A police officer literally told you what happened. And you're like, no, you're wrong. She fell on her shears. Like, what? Come on.
No wonder the other police officer went insane.
I'm surprised they didn't say Tim Messenger fell on the church.
like the bloody thing just fell on him.
Yeah. Why was he walking there?
Just another accident. And but I think during this time, like, you can really see that Nicholas is really losing his mind.
Because especially that next scene when he's like telling all the police officers, like, what are you talking? They literally like, you're going crazy. I think even Butterman, what did he say? He's like, oh, you need some time off. Because he's like, just to like rein it in or whatever. And I'm like, bro, what are you talking about?
But I think, during the scene, they show the swear box. So
early on.
Yeah, so he's wearing this. Are you fucking insane.
Gotta put the money in the box.
And then Danny was putting in things for him. And
Yeah.
as well. It's funny. They
Just a little.
they can make a very serious scene to be very funny. I think it's a very fine line to walk. You either do the comedy not well, or you do the serious scene not well. But they blend the two
quite well.
Very well.
So in the chase scene, he sees him cut his leg on the greenhouse.
Yes.
So he's like, he's thinking it's Skinner at this point, because from this point, like we've said, he's literally sounding like a serial killer.
Yeah.
He's multiple times threatened people.
Yeah.
So he's like, I think it's Skinner. So he goes to talk to Skinner because he said he was like a trial athlete, or he's like like a sprinter or like...
But like a runner, yeah.
And he's like, because I couldn't catch you. You must have been like a really good runner. And they're still like... Because what they show, did they show the image first? I can't remember. Or did he check his legs first?
So I think he came in. Well, he brought the whole police force with him to the supermarket, and he pretty much is going through like his theories. Okay, so you know this because the land is really valuable, etc. So he's going through the stories. And then, Skinner was like, but did you know that we are related? So that's why I would never harm her.
She was the cousin. And he's like, I did, because you were going to inherit that after she passed away, because you would get the land.
Yeah. And then he's like, this is all very good theories, detective or
because he slowly claps, and he's like...
Skinner is such a good villain, I'd say. And then he was trying to show up the legs, show the cuts.
He's like, I thought, and he's like... What?
This very evening. It's like, detective, I've got the tapes here. You're more than welcome to check out.
And it literally shows him there, and you're like, oh my god.
And I think during this point is where
that's when he breaks. I think that's when he's like, what are you talking about? Yeah,
gives up. And he did the Danny thing as well. So I think when he was watching the tape, Skinner was like, I'm planning to make a memorable garden for his. He's like, just jog off.
Yeah. Up yours, jog on. Oh my god!
But I mean, like you would do that as well. I mean, like you're literally losing your mind. Like whatever you're saying, people don't believe you, and I think you are starting to believe them.
And that's the thing, because the next day he's completely different. Because he's on patrol with Danny again, and I don't know if we talked about the scene, but there's a point where Angel's like, oh, look at this guy. This guy could be trouble. Or what about this guy? And then Danny's like, oh, look, it's the guy with the trench coat, and he's like. Does not care anymore. And then when Danny's like, "Oh, let's go to the shop. You want anything?" Yeah, he's like, "I'll have a cornetto." And he's never done that before. Yeah. And so when they're eating the cornetto, they have a chat with the lady, and then she's like, "Oh, did you catch the killers yet?" And like Danny's like, "Oh, there's only one." And that rings in Angel's head. He's like,
Only one.
Yeah. And he's like, "Did you catch the killers yet?" He's like, "Killers?"
And I think he went back to the station. He tried to convince the chief again, and the chief was like, "I think you need to get some sleep."
Yeah.
And I think that's when the movie kicked up a notch.
It definitely kicks up a notch.
Yeah. I really think like the escalation of this movie from this point onwards is amazing.
Did we talk about how all these people in the town had the microphones?
No, we didn't. No, we didn't.
We're talking about how he was introduced to all these people. But they all have like a walkie-talkie to communicate with each other. So they'll walk around town. He's like, "Oh, have you seen the Mr. Angel? He's got a good arse."
Check out his arse.
Yeah, check out his arse. And you hear it throughout the movie.
Yeah.
I forgot I was like, I mean, it's a very big point.
But I think that when he got introduced to the night watch people, all of them got that. And I think he saw that around the round table. But yeah, But
I thought it was great. Every time they walk, it's like, oh, there goes Mr. Angel.
Yeah. So apparently, like they always know what's going on.
Yeah, that's like the thing, right? Because they all communicate with each other, and they're all like telling each other what's happening at all times.
Yes. So he got back to his apartment, and
his hotel room, right? He still hasn't got a room yet. Well, it's been a busy 3 days. I'll say that much.
Oh wow, it's been only 3 days,
isn't it? It's 4. It wasn't much though.
Yeah, it was such a short amount of time.
All these accidents.
Yeah. So 4 accidents now. 4 accidents in 4 days. And then now, like this movie really took a turn. I think he noticed that his door was open.
Yeah, or I think someone was like opening it.
Yeah.
They like opening it, and he was like, "Oh,
someone is inside." And then Michael,
good old Michael."
Michael was trying to kill him.
Did we miss the joke for Michael? What he's like? What did he ask him? He's like, "Oh, who is his mum and like? What did he say? How's his mum and his sister?"
Right.
And he's like, "Oh no, they're the same person." And I'm like,
"Oh, yeah."
I was like,
I remember that. I missed that during the first viewing, but then during the second viewing,
because when I watched it this time, I was like, "How did I not notice that they had like the incest joke in there?"
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh, what was the? I can't remember what the question Angel asked, but he's like, "Oh, what was the difference between his mum and his sister?" He's like, "Oh no, they're the same person." And I'm like, "What?"
And did you notice that this detail as well? Skinner's workforce is full of these people.
Are they?
Yes. You know, like when Angel came to the supermarket and he was trying to accuse Skinner, and Skinner was like, "Oh, detective, I need to protect my my workforce." And then they showed.
No, but I thought it was just meant to be ominous because they're literally they're all just standing there like looking at him, and I'm like, why are they there? Shouldn't they be working?
Yeah. But I think during the second viewing, I can swear that he meant that his whole workforce is like that.
Okay.
Maybe I'm wrong. I hope that I'm wrong. I'm hoping that I'm wrong.
I'm sure we'll find out. But yeah, so Michael gets into his room.
Yeah.
And then
he's big guy.
He's big guy, but he's in the cloak. So
right.
that's when you're like, oh, he's in on it? Or he's the killer? Like, I assume that's what you think. Like, at this point, it's like, oh.
Yeah.
But then at that point, you're like, you probably think, oh, Skinner's just telling him to go kill people, right?
Correct. But the thing is, like, even if Michael is the killer, we saw that Nicholas was able to handle him. And that if he was actually the killer, then the ending would be very underwhelming.
If it wasn't for that fencing training, I don't think he would have been able to take him down.
And I think the distraction from the singing monkey was a good choice.
Yeah.
And of course, he needs to throw in the one-liner as well. The playtime's over.
Yeah. I love that he tries to explain that to Danny later. He's like,
he did that, and then Danny came over, and he's like, "What's going on?" I was right. Terry Chiba was right. But why didn't he wait for the police?
So he's got one of the walkie-talkies.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Michael, have you taken care of Officer Angel?" And he picks it up. He's like, "Yar." And he's like, I think he's like, "Oh, come to the castle." Yar.
Yeah, but before he left, Danny gave him the notebook.
Yes, he's like, "Make sure you take this with you."
Yeah. Such good details. And then we got to the big twist. What were they chanting? So when he got to the castle, he saw a big group of people all wearing black cloaks. They were chanting something.
Were they chanting?
I think they were chanting something like
what was it? Why have I forgotten their saying instantly?
No,
for the better good?
Yeah, for the greater good. Yeah.
I don't know if they're chanting that or not, but I know they say that a lot when he asks him a question. When they ask him a question, he's like, "That's for the greater good." He's like, "What do you mean the greater good?"
But like, it's very strange. Like, before every meeting, they tend to go through the details. Like, "Oh, Margaret just had twins."
Yeah, it's just like a normal council meeting, except they murder people.
Yeah. And Frank, like the guy from the watch room, he was like, "Now we don't have to worry about Sergeant Angel anymore. We can worry about more important things, the hoodies."
Yeah, the hoodies. Yeah, and they're like, yeah.
Oh, yeah, of course. And then, we got into the big confrontation. And then I think this is how you should do a big twist. Because you introduce a twist, and then you got another twist on that, and another one, and another one. It keeps the audience engaged.
Well, it all unravels, right?
Yeah.
Like, you kind of like, oh, they're in on it. Oh, he's also in on it. And then you're like, when he finds out Danny's also like in on it as well. And I was like, what? Like,
but I really like the interaction here, because I think I personally was hoping for a big reason behind all of this, and then it turns out to be
that was like one of the favorite parts of the movie. That he's just like, "Why did you kill them all?" And then they talk about the actress, and he's like, the actor, he was terrible. And he's like, why though? He's just like, did you see, I killed Shakespeare. He's like, oh, okay. Because he was like, oh, I get it, he was bad. Yeah. And then he's like, what about the actress? And he's like, did you hear her laugh? And I was like, really?
But then
and then he's like, what? And Messenger, oh, he couldn't spell. We don't want that kind of tabloid journalism here. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. He said that she was 55. I'm only 53.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm like, what? Come on.
Oh, this is just insane. Like, I was literally waiting, like, okay, there must be some bigger conspiracy going on, but no.
Nah.
But then when the chief of police came over, they all switched off the lights. And, like, I could see on Angel's face that he was shocked. Like, oh, sir, what's going on? And then he went through the backstory, like my wife gave her life for this village. And then, it all came crashing down. And she, I think she committed suicide.
Yeah, Danny references that later.
Yeah.
Later in the movie when it all goes to crap.
Yeah. So, and then it dawned on me, okay, so all of this is just for the award.
Yeah,
it's like, that is genius. That's genius. Because sometimes... So, and I think it's all about perspective, right? So something that might seem mundane to other people might mean a lot to other people.
Yeah, exactly.
And
but
then,
is murder worth it?
It's crazy. And hey, we didn't even talk about how the chief of police managed to convince this whole group of adults to join his cult. Right. So then, like Danny was in on it as well. So he started running. And then he fell down onto like the ground or something.
So he falls through, I don't know what he falls through, but it has a lot of the bodies.
Yeah.
So he sees the shoplifter, he sees the old police officer who they said went crazy.
Yeah.
Who else was down there? There was a few other people.
Yeah, the guy in the purple jumpsuit. The teenagers.
The statue guy.
Oh, yeah, the statue as well. That's so funny. Like, how can you make a horror scene funny?
Yeah, exactly.
You put a golden statue in there.
So that's when he runs into Danny at that point, and then Danny does he stabs him.
Yeah.
But later on, it makes sense later, but earlier in the movie, he does the whole fake blood thing.
Yeah. Yeah. With the ketchup. Yeah. With piercing his eye or something.
And then it comes back later in this because he doesn't really stab him. He stabs him just to like show that maybe the rest of the cult will be like, all right, he's dead.
Yeah. Okay. So what do you think about this set piece? Like, do you think that it helps the movie or it doesn't? Because after this, they kind of parted ways, and Angel could have come back to the city and brought the force with him, but then he was like, oh, but no one would ever believe you. They would make it all disappear, etc. But what do you think about this set piece? I think it's not as strong as the other set pieces.
I guess because it's like obviously we know what it's moving into, but it's so hard to set up. How do you set that up? I think it does make sense that like, hey, this whole town's like a cult. They've got all these dead bodies.
Yeah.
Whether or not they would have got there in time to clean it up. But there's got like, and that's the thing, like what evidence do you have? Like they had no evidence.
Yeah.
Oh, we forgot to mention about the guy with the guns.
Ah, right. The old farmer.
Yeah. The guy from Harry Potter. Mr. Finch, I think he is in Harry Potter.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean. It's like so hard to prove. It's like, hey, everyone in town's pretty much a cult and they're killing people that they think make the town bad.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Yeah. But what I think is like during the interaction, I think the perspective kind of shifting. So we're shifting from Angel's perspective to Danny's perspective. And I think up until that point, we noticed Angel's development and also Danny's development. But I think the scene where they kind of so where they were saying goodbyes and then Danny was convincing Angel to leave, that's when the perspective changes. So I think this is where Angel development stops and Danny's begins. Because I think from that point onwards, there was nothing new about Angel's personal development. Like he cares about Danny, they're friends, and I think he let people in, and now he does the job correctly. And I think that's where his development ends. And I think now they focus on Danny's. It's quite interesting because from
it's
that
more
point,
for his revelation because he's like, when he talks to Danny, he's like, this is not right. Like, why are you helping with this? And he's like, I can't remember. He doesn't say it's for the greater good, but he thinks it's like, it's helping the town or whatever. He's like, what are you talking about? Like, this is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, he convinces him a bit. He's like, maybe, because there's like much later in the movie when they're trying to convince the other police force, and it's like, come on. Like,
guys.
You can see that he's been pulling you along the whole time.
Yeah.
And I think Danny's the first one to realize this. He's like, it's not good.
Yeah.
Murdering people doesn't help the town, right?
Yeah. So I think just before he came back, he went to a petrol station. He bought some things, and then he saw the DVDs. He saw Point Break and Bad Boys.
That's what I love. And you're like, now I know what's happening.
Yeah. Then it's like, okay, this is something I need to do myself. And see, and now I think I still believe in the theory that because the scene after Danny stabbed Angel, I think, and then, like he got him out of town, he gave him his car to escape. I think during that time, I don't see any other character developments from Nicholas. The rest of the character development is from Danny's side now.
I think there's like a little bit, because like we said, when he's letting people in, and he tries to convince the other police guys and stuff. Like, I feel like that's not really would have been a part of his character to begin with, but he's happy to open up to them and be like, hey, come on, you gotta side with me. This ain't right. Yeah, I think that might be the only other moment till maybe like the ending part of the movie. Yeah, but I do agree that more of the focus is on Danny now, that it's like,
I think so.
He's kind of realizing like what's been going on, what he's been kind of being pushed through and stuff.
And then he came back to the town. He went straight into the evidence room to get out the guns.
The favorite guy says, she's like,
nobody told me nothing.
Yeah, nobody told me nothing.
And it turns out they're twins.
Yeah, right. I still love that the evidence locker is just like 999 straight back in.
Then he got all the guns out. And well, I mean, like up until this point, apparently the London police force has been trying to contact Angel a few times.
There's a few times, yeah. Yeah. And this when he's all loaded up with all the guns and he's walking out, he's like, what's he say? London was trying to call you, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, and he looks at him and he's like, with all the guns, he's like, I'll tell him you'll call him back.
Okay, next question. Where did he find a white horse?
Well, that's what then they say. He's like, when did we have a mounted like part? Because he's like, they didn't realize they had horses.
Yeah. And I think that when he first kind of came back to the town, he met up with this guy and his older mum. So
when he first comes back in, runs him. Yeah. And then the old lady, that was
he kicked the old lady in the face as well.
I was like, Simon, the old lady deserved it.
I mean, she was shooting at him.
That's true. That was great when she's like trying to reload and he's just like trying to make it there.
Who was that guy? Oh, so he was the guy from the shooting range.
Yeah.
He was the guy from the shooting range. Okay, so he got back to town and then he took the white horse from there.
Okay.
He took the white horse and then was riding it back in. And then turns out all of his suspicions were true. The old guy in the trench coat got guns underneath. And then he gave, he shut them down and then he threw a gun. Danny helped him by opening the
lady
door.
on the bike, and he like clotheslines her with the door, and I'm like, oh god.
And then he gave him the gun, and then they started.
The montage erupts. Time to relive all the movie moments.
The Bad Boys montage. I like the fact that he didn't really try to kill all these people. He tried to neutralize them.
It definitely seemed like he wasn't trying to kill them.
Yeah.
Because who just said the first guy he gets, he's like, you can't arrest us all. Yeah. And he's like, watch me. I'm gonna do it.
Did you know the detail of the shop owner lady? Like, she was upstairs and she got a rifle with a scope as well, and then she kept missing him. And then he for some reason he asked a bunch of teenagers.
No, he's like, he gave him a bunch of spray cans so he can block off all the old guy watching all the CTV.
But then he also asked him to run into the shops and drag the lady away from the window.
Did he? I don't know.
That was a weird detail because he was hiding from the other guy from shooting this way, and the shop owner lady went upstairs, and she had a rifle, and she was trying to shoot at him, and then he whistled for the bunch of kids to run through the store.
Right.
And then the store says like one kid at one time.
Yeah, one kid at a time.
And then they snatched her away from the window.
Because that was a whole running joke. Every time they walked in the store, it would show that sign. That only one high schooler at a time or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh God.
And then they went to the pub.
Yeah, the pub was a great when they fought the dudes, and then he like shoots the trap onto his head.
But I think in the pub is where they ran into
the other policemen.
Yeah.
Or police officers.
The police officers. Then the chief of police, he was carrying 2 guns out, and he was like, arrest this man. And I think this conversation here is great. I think the conversation between Danny and his dad was fantastic. It's like, Dad, Mom is dead.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, if she sees...
If she saw this, she would kill herself again.
No,
that's when I was
crazy.
like, that's brutal. I was like, oh my God.
That's dark. That's great. And then they're trying to convince the other police people. Oh, really? Then we got to the big chase scene. We jump into the car.
And I will say they were surprisingly convinced.
Yes.
Because I was like, I'm surprised he didn't have to say too much. He's like, actually, now that I think about it, it's kind of crazy that all these accidents happen.
You think?
Yeah, right. That's what I mean.
For 3 years.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, oh my God.
And then this is when the Tony guy kind of turned around. So they went to the supermarket, and then Angel was like, "What do you think? I think we should get in when we got the elements of surprise." And it's like, "Oh, okay." What he said. That's great. Then we got into the butchers. Okay.
The supermarket, right?
The supermarket. So Angel was finding Michael.
He was like, I'll go in first. And then he gets thrown out the window.
Yes.
And I was like, oh my God.
Okay, so you guys take the butchers. I will take the troller boy.
Yeah.
Okay, here's a detail that I'm not very happy with. The 2 butchers guy, they've got a bunch of knives and cleavers. They were throwing it out. The other police officers were trying to shoot at them. Yeah. One of the guy got bolognese on his face. Yeah. And then the other guy said, no! Don't worry, it's just bolognese. Okay, they were trying to shoot at the butchers. Their bullets couldn't break through the glass. Okay, right? So they were shooting at them.
Maybe they're all going up. They weren't hitting the glass.
Okay.
It would, you would think someone would
at least one dent.
Unless you know that meat's got to be safe. It's got to be bulletproof, right? Don't want anyone stealing your deli meats.
So let's say it's bulletproof glass. So what did they do after that? They brought a bunch of trolleys.
Yeah,
and then the trolleys.
It's not trolley proof.
So he knocked the guy over into the freezer, and then he did a callback to the peace deli before. It's like, okay, he's in the freezer. Did you tell him to cool off? No, I actually didn't say anything. What a shame.
What a shame.
After the supermarket, where did they go? I think they went to the pub after that. They went to the supermarket.
I think the pub was before, because the whole team's together now. The pub's when they all get together.
Yes.
And then, because did I get Skinner? No, Skinner must run away.
Yes.
Because they have the scene later.
Yeah, true. Yes.
So I think Skinner makes a getaway, right? And then they chase him down.
Yeah.
And that's when they go to the model home, like you're saying at the start. And it's like, oh, what's the model home for?
Yeah.
And then Skinner tries to take the kid. There's like the kid trying to take him home. The ginger, and he like bites him. He's like, ah!
What's your name, son? Do you remember the kid's name?
No, I don't.
Aaron A. Aronson.
Oh my God, that's right. Aaron A. Aronson.
With 2 A's.
Another stupid name.
But I think that was a very good detail because during one of the scenes, one of the detectives was like, okay, you want to interview everyone, why don't you start the phone book with Aaron Aronson with 2 A's? And then we have a callback. During that final fight scene, I really don't know why Skinner thought
I will also say, before the fight scene, they do get someone very important. The Swan. They find the Swan on the
infamous Swan. Yeah. Thanks to the Swan that, Skinner's car got crashed into the motorhome.
I always forget. I was like, I love that they get the Swan still at the end.
Yeah. Swan!
Yeah.
So they stopped. They got the Swan. They got into the motorhome. I still don't understand why Skinner thought that he could fight Angel. Like they should got all the police training. Skinner is just a guy. Granted, he's bigger.
He's big, but
man,
what else are you going to try to do?
the policeman got guns, got cars, got training. Why would you do that?
His deadliest weapon was his notebook.
Hey,
well, you got to have like the final fight, right?
Yeah.
So that's like, that's another dramatic scene when you're like, yet again, back to the church. Through the mouth. I was like, oh. He's like, oh, it hurts so bad. And I'm like, I wonder why.
I need ice cream.
Yeah, I'm like, that was weird as well. I'm like, oh. And then Butterman shows up again.
Yeah.
And then he takes their car to run away, but guess who's in the car? The Swan is back again for vengeance.
But that scene was a bit underwhelming for me.
I think that was all right.
No, it was funny. But I'm talking about the scene before when Danny was helping his dad out of the car, and then suddenly he just took the gun and then just took Danny took Danny hostage.
Yeah.
And I was like, I mean, like at this point, like you have no more.
You've lost everything.
Yeah, you lost everything. So why would you do this?
And it also leads to the best scene when he's like running away and Danny's holding the gun. He's going to go, he's going to do the point blank. And I'm like, oh, God.
Okay, that's good. It's very good. I mean, now I understand why he did it and why why they want to show that movie before. And then,
it all plays back, right? It isn't just there for like a moment or a callback. It like plays into the movie and the script. That it's like a valuable point that he's like, his father's getting away and he's like, I can't shoot my damn father.
Yeah.
Not like his father, who was literally just like holding him hostage.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that's like another. It's like it was really good. That's why I like because then obviously he gets in the car to drive away, and the Swan's there to save the day. And that's like another callback as well because it's like, oh, they find the Swan, they pick it up, put it in the car, and they're like, oh, we're gonna deal with this. And then when he steals the car, the Swan's still there, and it's like,
very good.
The Swan saves the day.
And I think this is the things that a lot of movies these days they are not doing quite right. They focus too much on the moments. They want to draft out the moments, but the moments are not very organic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
even with callbacks, like there was a few movie references, but nothing like how we see now. There's a lot of movies that like reference other movies just because it's like, oh, don't you remember this good movie? And it's like, okay.
But then it has nothing to do with your story.
It has nothing to play. But within this, it's like the Bad Boys thing is like when they all get kitted up and shoot up everybody. That's like Bad Boys. Yeah. And then Point Blank, they like you literally see the scene with Keanu Reeves, and then it's like later with Danny.
Yeah,
like,
it makes sense. You know, it makes sense
like
with the movie.
Plays into the character as well. He's like, he's a movie buff. It isn't just like, oh, here's a Bad Boy scene in Hot Fuzz. Oh, here's a Point Blank scene in Hot Fuzz. It like plays into the movie, which is great.
And I think nowadays, a lot of the movie makers, they create the moments just for the sake of the moments, but they don't really focus on like how it will serve the overall story. Because
I think what's sad sometimes, it is still a business.
Yeah.
So they want to know what's going to make more money more than be a good film.
Yeah.
Because I think we both know some good films don't make great money, but they're still great films. But that's the thing.
Yeah.
They want movies that are going to make billions of dollars.
Yeah. And the moments of the movies are easier to go viral on social media, and that's how you market
that
the
as
movies,
well. Like,
right? So,
but that's what it's sad sometimes because there's some really great movies. Like we've already talked about Shawshank Redemption, how when that initially came out, it had a horrible reception, and then like now it's a cult classic. So it's like. Well, we talked about Blade Runner as well. Like, I can see why people are turned off by that, but I personally believe it's a really good movie.
Yeah.
But I can see why people don't think it's not like it's not. It wasn't. I'm sure at the time would have been like, oh, here's the second Blade Runner, where everyone's got to come and watch it. But even then, Blade Runner wasn't even like.
Yeah.
It was more of a cult classic more than like a well-known movie.
Yeah.
And I think there's less focus on trying to make a great movie and trying to make a blockbuster.
Yeah. They need to go viral. They need to go big. They need to. But I think it's quite interesting that you mentioned that as well, because I think it's quite justified, because nowadays with all the streaming platforms, I think cinema is in danger. Really.
I think a lot of people. I've heard a lot of directors have said that as well. But we still have like. We've had Oppenheimer and Barbie. They were big moments in movies still, and that was only last year, right?
Yeah.
And even Dune's coming up. I think Dune literally came out 2 days ago. Dune 2. I don't know how well that will do, but I think that will do probably decent numbers.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think, all the Marvel movies at the moment haven't done great, but that's what I mean. Where we still don't have as many blockbusters that we used to have, but like you said, because there's so much content now, it's so hard to be like pick out.
Exactly.
Even there are other films that I would love to watch, but it's just like I know they're not the ones that are making the money.
Yeah.
And that's the sad thing as well. This is a bit of a tangent from Hot Fuzz.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But
still. I mean, like I think it's a good segue, you know, because at the end of the day, you know, like we are talking about a movie that has done well, and then, you know, it's
held up well as well.
It's held up well. It's got a good story, it got good characters, etc. And I think, you know, like when we got to the end, like we got all the satisfaction from all these
all the payoffs,
right?
And it wasn't just. Sometimes payoffs, you're like, oh, okay, they had to do this. Where it's like, it feels a bit more meaningful for the characters with the payoffs.
Yeah.
With like Danny, like trying to be a better police officer. Yeah. With Angel, trying to be just lean off work a little bit, trying to be a person sometimes. Yeah. Like, obviously the main two characters. And it's like, you know, they've learnt something and all their character flaws are kind of paid out. And even at the end. So when they capture him, and then I love that all the police guys come. Yeah. They're all there and they're like, we want you to come back. And he's like...
Did you notice that the Swan reunited with the owner?
Yeah, I like that as well. That was the most important part of the film.
yeah, I love that.
That was the only story arc that I cared about, as long as the Swan got back.
And so when so they took all these guys back to the police station and they did the paperwork, and everyone was doing paperwork.
Yeah, they all get together, reunite through paperwork.
Yeah, and then I think during this time you really see the final developments of Angel's personality. Like he was talking to the guys.
He was joking with them.
With Doris.
Yeah, as well. That's where I was like, he makes like a joke at her as well.
Yeah, you wouldn't mind a little bit of manpower, would you?
Yeah, and I was like, oh no, here we go.
Here we go.
But as we're like, this is what it's going to be like. Yeah. The dad escapes.
The dad,
Butter's out.
Oh, right. No,
he gets out. Oh. And he like threatens him again. And then he runs into like the
evidence room.
The evidence room.
Yeah.
And the mine's still there.
Oh, yeah.
And he like hits the mine and it falls on him and he's like, oh no.
No, but I think that wasn't Butterman.
Did he shoot Danny or stab Danny? Because Danny got
shot.
He shot him because
Frank
he does the other movie, so he's gonna like dive. He's gonna dive and save.
Yes. But I think that wasn't his dad. I think it was Frank.
Was it Frank?
Frank, the guy who the monitor
guy upstairs. Yeah. I thought he was dad. The guy that was looking at all the cameras.
They look quite similar.
Two old men.
But
you're right.
He shot Danny.
They forgot that he was upstairs, which is hilarious. That it's like the old man.
He was one of them.
They had a long day, all right?
Okay. Then when we got to this scene, there's another unbelievable scene as well. Angel was standing in the plaza. Survived
that whole explosion. I'm like, all right.
They destroyed the whole building, but Angel survived.
No, well, and even with Danny with the gunshot wound, it's still like lying. It's like, we're gonna get you safe, and I'm like, maybe you shouldn't have made such a big explosion. But that's all right.
Yeah, well,
you can have one. There's a lot of unbelievable moments, but you know,
it's an older house, you know. And the sea mine was older.
I was going to say that police station looked quite old. I'm like, it's a bit sad that they blew it up.
Yeah, it's an old building. It's a beautiful building. I mean, they blew up a beautiful house before because it didn't match the style.
Yeah.
It's such a
big ugly house.
And after that, what do you think about the ending? So
I think it's about right? They're working together. They've got a brand new car, the new Subaru.
Yeah. Hot Fuzz on the roof. Here comes the Fuzz. I think it was I don't know if there was much else to say, right? Yeah. Do you think that it would have been a much better ending if they had ended where
they all died in the explosion?
You think they would have been like a better ending at the cemetery?
I think so. At the church.
At a church.
Not the church. The small. Why have I already forgotten the name?
Like
the final fight was.
Yeah. Like the model house.
The model house. I think that would have been a good ending because it's still kind of clean. Like all the stories have kind of finished.
Yeah.
As long as they showed the Swan getting back to where he was, because that's like a good ending. This is kind of like. I will say we did forget about the camera guy.
Yeah.
When they that ends that as well. I don't know how important that is in the grand scheme of the movie.
Yeah.
But I think personally that would have been a good ending when they're all at the model houses.
So. I think the extra to to set
Like,
pieces,
yeah.
or like
It was fine,
were
but
fine, but like I think it took
not as
away from the
necessary.
movie a little bit. And I think, okay, let's say if we still go ahead with the last shootout scene and Danny got shot, I think it might have made a much better ending if we ended the movie where Angel went goes to the cemetery and then lost Danny.
Oh no, maybe they're there and it's got like butter. It's got you can't see. You can see the last name.
Yeah.
But then Danny comes in. And he's like, oh, he's safe. It's just his dad or whatever, and he's there with Danny for his dad. So it shows that it's like, he's moved past it and he's helping a friend and he's not dead.
Yeah.
But that's like a bit of a nitpick in a pretty good comedy movie.
But when I got to that ending, I had this thought like, okay, would it be a much better ending if we ended where if Danny had died? I think that's
I don't think so.
So then he got shot, and then Angel went through this whole arc. So obviously they wanted to have like a happy ending.
I think that's pretty brutal. I don't feel like the story's meant to be brutal.
Yeah,
there's a lot of horrible like killings.
Yeah.
And I don't think it would be a good ending if Danny died. I feel like that would be brutal for Angel because he's like, the first person he's like connected with in a long time.
Yeah.
And he dies.
Yeah.
Like that'd be pretty brutal for his story. Because then it's like, where does he sit?
Yeah.
Like, does he just roll back into what he used to be?
Perhaps.
Like, I think it's better for Danny to be alive because then it keeps him, like, he's going to keep going down his trajectory. Yeah. I feel like Danny dying would probably revert him back to being like,
Fair enough.
But that's what I would. Obviously, this is like speculation, but that's what I would see it as.
So throughout this movie, I think there are two like underlining themes. I think the first thing that I want to talk about is the perspective that you have versus reality. Like if we use Angels as an example, everything that he knows about police work is from his experience working in a city. When when he went to the country, everything is different, and like what he really experienced might not be true. And I think it really interesting to talk about that point. What do you think about that idea? Let's say the things that the thing that you experience throughout your life, and now let's say you travel to a different country, for example, and it's not true anymore. Like, what is your thought on that?
Well, I was going to say, like, another good like point is like maybe you come from, because the whole thing is like you come from like a quicker part of life, and then you move to the country, which is always a bit slower. Because I talk about this a lot, where people in the city will talk quicker because they've got to get out quicker. We're in the country, wherever, we'll talk a bit slower because not that they're slow themselves, but everything moves a bit slower. They're not as in much of a hurry. They don't need to deal with 1,000 people, coming in each day. It's just like, I'm just talking to the people I know. Doesn't matter if I take a bit longer. Where that's like his lifestyle, like we said at the start. He's like, on the ball. But as soon as he walks into town, the first interaction is a lady doing a crossword. Yeah. Right? And that's like really like a slow thing. Yeah. It's not like a quick process. Yeah. And I think that's the thing in life. Like, I don't blame people that like, if you live in the city or the suburbs where it's like a bit more, I wouldn't say like high end, but it takes a bit more compared to like into the country. Like, still working and stuff, but it's a bit more tame and a bit more laid back. It's still important and stuff, but it's just not as high rev as in the city. It can take a lot out of you. Yeah. Like, we're both worked in like, high, like somewhat of a busy area, but nothing like, not like city area, but it's completely, I've been to the country. I've never worked in the country, but like just going, you can feel the vibes completely different. Even when you talk to people or you go out to eat, it's like a different vibe from when you're in the city. It's just like, what do you want? All right, they'll be out. And then they're like, out it comes. Yeah. If you're talking to someone, they mightn't even want to talk to you. The city, they're doing their own thing. Everyone kind of like walks past each other at high paces. Yeah. In the country, it's like, oh, hey, Johnny, how you doing? How the cows doing?
How's the cows?
Oh, they're doing all right. It's just a bit more communal. And as the world gets bigger and more people are going to get in it, that kind of loses out, especially we're in Australia and in Melbourne. Melbourne's being slowly built up more. So it's like we're going to have more and more people. So it just leans to that. But I feel like I've deviated from your point a bit.
No, that's okay. I mean, like it's completely fine because when you have certain perspective, it's really hard for you to adapt to a new setting. And I think like that's what Angel went through when he got to the town. He's got all the training, all the experience from before, and then he's really struggling to adapt.
Because it's not in the same way you think either. It's not that he's overqualified.
He's overqualified,
which is a difference. I think some people have probably had that experience where you like go into a job or just an experience. So it's like, oh, maybe I need all these skills. And it's like, oh, it's really not that bad.
Yeah.
And maybe the other people there are not as up to you. Because that's what it's like. He goes there, he's like really overqualified.
Yeah.
Like we said, first night he's there. He's not even on the job and he's arrested 4 people.
Yeah.
One's his co-worker. So it's like completely different vibe.
And I think that's a good segue as well. I think Angel's character is all about like becoming the best version of himself, and
as a police officer.
As a police officer, and I think we learned how because he got inspired by his uncle, who turns out to be a drug dealer.
Yeah, I love that detail. That's how he probably got the car, because he was a drug dealer. I'm like, Jesus.
But I want to talk about his obsession to become the best police officer as he can. Like, what does it mean to you when someone devotes their whole life to become great at something?
I think it can be quite inspiring, but I do think it is, like, I think I've met very few people that are at that level about anything, of like a devotion to either work or a hobby or a talent or a skill. It's very hard, like... Sometimes I have a short attention span. So like I'm doing something like, time to move on to something else. Like it's hard for me to get so, devoted to one thing. Like I feel like time, like we've both worked in the kitchen. After a time, you do something so many times, you just get good at it. And it's like, but it's like a different thing to be devoted, to be the best at it. Where I don't know if I've ever done anything like that. Like, I try not to dwell on it too much.
Yeah.
But there's very few people I would say I've personally met that have been like, this is all my time. This is all I think about. This is all I want to do.
Yeah.
Everything's like a backseat, like relationships, maybe a job, even if it's not your job.
Yeah.
Maybe my skill or hobby takes over for that.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it can be inspiring, but you can also see, like, as we see in this movie, it can detract from other things in your life.
Absolutely.
Because we've both worked in a kitchen. I've worked in some kitchens where it's like, that's their life.
Yeah.
And I kind of didn't want that.
Yeah.
It's a lot. Like it can, I feel like minimum for working like long hours in a kitchen is like 50 hours, and that's like a shit ton.
Yeah.
And these people that would run these kitchen work like 60, 70 hours. Like if it's open 7 days a week, they're there every day from shut to open.
Yeah.
Or open.
Shut to open or open to shut. It's the same. Yeah.
And they don't have much else going on in their life, which is nothing wrong if they enjoy it and they feel like they're achieving something. But it's just like, for me personally, I just need something to cut away from that sometimes. It's like, it's hard to be solely devoted to something, but I do think it can be inspiring.
I mean, and the consequence of becoming a greatness is like you become very lonely
as well.
Like
that's covered in a lot of stuff as well.
Exactly. Like in Angel's case, no doubt he was a great police officer, but he did that at a cost. Because at the end of the day, you only have 24 hours. You have 8 hours of sleep. The rest of the time, you need to spend it somehow. For him, he spent all the time with training, becoming a better police officer, and joining all the other activities to help him become a better police officer. So I think devoting your whole life to become great at something is fantastic, but I think you need to be aware of the consequences that it will come. Like your relationship will be affected.
As we see with him.
You might have no friends. You might not even have any hobbies.
Even your bosses think you're too good. And they're like, you're getting out of here. You're embarrassing us.
I think that's a bit of a stretch. I mean,
I will say I'm sure there's some people that have had that experience where you're like, you're too good, get out of here. But like, it's like crazy to hear that it's like, the big boss is like, you're embarrassing us. Get out, like leave us alone.
But I think... this is a great movie, and it's a very rewatchable movie as well.
Yeah, I've watched it a few times as well.
So, and it's always, I think it's a feel-good movie throughout.
Apart from the gruesome murders.
Apart from the gruesome murders, I think that you can kind of skip those scenes.
I never understood why it had. Is it because it's not meant for the shock value, right? Every time, like the gruesome murders.
I think it's rated R, this movie.
But like, there's nothing else in the movie that's like so full on. It's literally just the murders.
But I think probably that's why it leaves you a much stronger impression.
I think it's meant to be. For me, I feel like it's more for the whole, it's an accident. It's like, because it's so gruesome, it's like, how could this be an accident kind of thing?
Fair enough.
But yeah, I would recommend this movie if you haven't seen it. It is great. It's hilarious.
And just the last point I want to mention as well. Before we did today's episode, did you know that there is a trend on YouTube? So many people are searching for this movie and they're doing the first viewing.
Really?
And they're filming themselves doing the first
reaction
viewing. And they do reactions and they got their friends and family to watch it for the first time.
And then they see all the deaths.
And but besides all the murders, they really enjoy the movie. And I think you will as well. Anything to add on this episode?
No, I think we've done a pretty good job at the moment.
So, I hope that you guys enjoy this episode. Leave us a comment, give us a 5-star review. And I'm Darren.
And I'm Tim.
And this has been Movie Beings.